Welcome back to season 3 of the Eat and Edit podcast, and I am so excited to be back. But before we get started, I just wanted to take a moment to say how amazing last season was and how grateful I truly am. It blew me out of the water and it was more than I expected. But with that, of course, I go back with each season and reevaluate a few things. And one of the things that I needed for my own sanity essentially was to reduce the number of episodes. I really use that second season as a teaser and a tester for me to evaluate what worked best, not only in my life, but for my audience. And so I did a few adjustments and decided that I'm going to be hosting 2 episodes a week, but they look a little bit different. So they're going to be hosted on Mondays and Fridays. The first one on Mondays is more your inspiration, your tips, your insights to fuel you throughout the week. And then Friday is more fun. We're bringing in podcast episodes with some incredible women, and I cannot wait to share all of that with you. They are all lined up. We're already filming into seasons 5 and 6. And so I cannot wait to share all of that with you. I cannot believe how crazy it is that we have so many guests that were so interested, and it has just been such a blessing. But I really wanted to dive into this episode today because I feel like it is one of my favorites and something that is not really talked about quite in depth. And I cannot wait to get started with you guys. Here's what I've discovered in working with so many purpose-driven entrepreneurs is that there is this profound difference between just getting paid for what you're building and actually building a business that is specific to the people that God has designed for you and called you to serve. And somewhere along the lines, I think that as we're building, it's very easy for us to get caught up in all of that. But one of the perspectives that I want you to consider is, this is one of my favorites too, is when God called the Israelites to the promised land, he didn't just give them some random piece of land. He created this area, this sanctuary, this place that was very specific to them, and he made it so perfectly suited for them. And it was a land that had even milk and honey, right? It was so perfect for them. And I believe that that same principle applies to us within business. And we have this promised land, if you want to call it, of ideal clients that was perfectly created for us. And we have, you know me, you know that I love to talk about having this specific and very unique set of gifts and skills. And I think that applies so much to business, and we often forget that. Most business advice approaches audience building a little bit backwards. I think that essentially, while these things are important, the way that it approaches it is that it tells you to study the market and then find a profitable niche and then position yourself accordingly. But when I go back and I look into scriptures and I look into what I know about business and building one that is built for impact versus just revenue, it is viewing it through this lens that what if you were to take that and flip it on its head, and instead you started not just with some random piece of studying the market, right? Like there is purpose to that, but what if you started with identifying the market with this lens of doing it with your God-given design? What if your ideal client isn't somebody that is someone that can just pay you, but rather somebody who you are helping fix these very specific needs that align with your unique gifts so perfectly? And, if we look even deeper into scripture, there's, the famous part of David and Goliath, and he is getting ready to face this giant, and he didn't try to use Saul's armor. He used what were very specific tools that God had already given to David, and they were already essentially developed within him. And in the same way, God has equipped you with very specific gifts, your experiences, your life stories, these perspectives that have really shaped and prepared you for this unique assignment that he has given you and only you. And before you get clarity on who you're essentially meant to serve, you need to be clear on how you're meant to serve them. And I think there's this big distinguishing factor in all of that. You have to be really clear on who you are in order to know how you can effectively serve someone with your gifts. And I think that's the part that most people kind of skip over because we're so close to ourselves, right? But it goes deeper than just knowing your skills. It's knowing how you are uniquely positioned and using that in combination with the natural gifts, this hard-won perspective and wisdom that you have, and the transformation that you are already naturally equipped to facilitate to your clients. And for me, I discovered that I have this natural ability to see the bridge between biblical principles and then strategic marketing approaches. And that wasn't something that when I was a little girl, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. It was something that over time, God filled me with that perspective. And I feel like God really put several signs in my path that told me, okay, let's piece these two together and you just have this unique approach. Like, I can't even tell you how it came to be. I just know that it was something that was beyond me. And the most powerful connections end up happening when you address both the practical pain that people are facing and then this deeper purpose behind it. And I think a lot of times we forget that. And I think that if we go and look deeper at these areas of ourselves that are so different that most people come to us for, or most people call out, like, you're so amazing at doing this. And you look at your past experiences and all of these different combinations of things. And I know I've touched upon this in previous episodes, but if you really go into looking at your audience with knowing the deeper purpose behind everything, you're not just going into it with these generic marketing tactics or these challenges that most people face with marketing. You're going through it with this different lens, and the specific challenges that your audience is facing, and then you can actually build a profitable business without compromising the values that you have. And I knew that as I was building my business, I wanted to take this piece of what God had called me specifically to do and pair that with the challenges that the world faces, because it's really hard to distinguish what is God calling me to do and what is the world telling me to do. And it can get so muddied. And I knew that in my soul, that was something that was a huge problem. And I was like, I have to figure out a way to marry the two, because I do truly believe that God called us to run businesses that didn't separate them, and they are meant to be one. And then when I dive deeper into scripture, I found so many similarities in what God had purposed for our businesses and for our lives. And when I started to shift my messaging around speaking directly to faith-driven entrepreneurs who wanted to build these profitable businesses without compromising their values and building something that really honored their faith, whether it was forward facing or it was a subtle guide within their business, everything changed. I would say that my content started resonating on a different level. It was deeper and more impactful, and my offers started to convert a lot more consistently because I was really honed in on who I was speaking to, and I knew how to address what they were facing. And I started to attract clients that were truly aligned with my divine design, not what the world told me that I should be. And I want to address something that I hear really often. And it's that most people feel like if they narrow their focus on a very specific audience, that it'll limit their income and their impact. And the thing that I've discovered is when you begin to narrow your audience, it doesn't limit your impact. Rather, it actually deepens it. And when you try to reach everyone, what ends up happening is that your message begins to become very diluted. And when you focus on what we said before, your promised land of ideal people, your message gets even more concentrated. And that concentrated message ends up becoming more powerful and creating an even more powerful transformation for the people that you're meant to serve. And my favorite example of someone who did this so perfectly is Jesus. He said that he was sent for the lost sheep. And I think, well, specifically the lost sheep of Israel. But when you think about this, like, take a moment to pause on that. When he did that, it didn't limit his impact. And rather, by focusing on his very specific people that he knew that he was going to touch in his earthly ministry, what ended up happening is that he created this depth of transformation that eventually expanded to the entire world. So what some may see as him being very narrow in his focus actually left this massive opportunity for him to really impact more than just those people in this incredible way that he did it. And the reason why I want to hone in on that is because this week, what I would really love for you to do is take time with yourself to just sit and reflect on your divine design and figure out what are the unique combination of gifts and experiences and insights that I bring to the world, and what specific transformation can I provide to the people that are my promised land of people that I am uniquely equipped to facilitate for them. I want you to consider that they all come with very specific struggles, and how can you help them face all of these things that they're struggling with while pairing that with your divine design. And if you're feeling this nudge to say, okay, I know that I am meant for more. I believe that I am really called to serve specific people in a deeper way than even what I'm doing now. I have an up and coming webinar that helps you dive deeper into that, and it helps really bridge that gap to really help figure out what are you so incredibly designed to help facilitate within the lives of these people. What impact are you meant to leave? I encourage you to join this webinar, and I'm going to leave it in the show notes, but I want you to take away this in all of this episode. If you could be so suited for your audience and address these specific needs that they're facing and do it in a way that God designed you to do it, it would transform the way that you approach business. And I want you to remember ultimately that God has called you not necessarily to serve everyone, right? He's called you to serve very specific people in a very specific way. And when you align that calling with both your impact, your fulfillment begins to grow. It'll grow probably beyond what you ever even imagined was meant for your business. And I encourage you to dive a little bit deeper. I know in speaking to so many people that this is an area that most don't touch on. We start a business from what we feel is a need, and then we just go full speed with it, never really taking the time to evaluate what God designed you for and the impact that you can really have, like truly have with your business. So I will leave you with that. But until next time, I want you to remember that you were designed with purpose, on purpose, for a very specific purpose. And your promised land of clients is waiting.